My dad kicked me out of my bedroom for my 4-year-old brother. Now that I discovered my brother stole $89,000 and my dad covered it up, I exposed them both and their lives were destroyed forever. I'm 18 years old, just graduated high school a few months ago, and I need to tell this story because basically everything I thought I knew about my family fell apart in a matter of days. And honestly, I don't regret at all how things turned out, even though my Aunt Linda, the official family gossip, keeps saying I'm cruel and vindictive. But we'll get to that part. I guess I should start at the beginning. My mom, Jennifer, died when I was 11. Cancer. It was awful, obviously. And my dad, David, was devastated, or so it seemed. What I didn't know until years later is that Jennifer was actually my dad's second wife. He had a first marriage that produced my half-brother Justin, who's now 24. When my parents got married, Justin was already a teenager and basically grew up with his mom, so we never had a close relationship. He was always the perfect son in my dad's eyes, the firstborn, the one who could do whatever he wanted without consequences. I, on the other hand, was always like the replacement son, the one who was never going to measure up. After Mom died, things got weird at home. My dad worked all the time at this tech company. He was like a finance manager or something, and I basically raised myself the last few years. I cooked my own food, did my own laundry, did my homework without help. Not that I'm complaining. Let's just say it made me independent. But it's not like I had much choice either. My dad was always busy or tired, and when he had free time, he spent it calling Justin or visiting him. Justin lived like 2 hours away with his wife, Nicole, and their son, Connor, who's like 3 years old, I think. Nicole is one of those people who posts photos on Instagram all day, trying to be a mom influencer, but she doesn't actually have followers or make money from it. She just posts pictures of Connor with captions like blessed and grateful, while Justin works, or worked, you'll see, to support them. She's never worked. Literally, never. And Justin always complained that money was tight, but he also didn't want her to look for a job because, according to him, Connor needed his mom at home full-time. So, basically they lived financially stretched, but with rich people aspirations. You know what I mean? So we get to March of this year. I was in my last semester of high school, waiting for news from universities, making plans for the future. One night, my dad came home earlier than usual and told me, "We need to talk." I sat on the couch and he stayed standing, which was already a bad sign, because normally when we talked, which was rare, he at least sat down. He told me that Justin and Nicole were going through financial difficulties, that they'd lost their apartment and were going to move in with us for a while they recovered financially. And I thought, okay, fine. The house is big, it has 3 bedrooms. We can make it work even though I'm not thrilled about the idea of living with Nicole and her social media obsession. But then came the second part. My dad said, "You're going to have to move out of your room because Justin and Nicole need space for themselves and Connor. We're going to give them your room because it's the biggest and has a private bathroom. You can use the living room couch or the guest room." And I was like, wait, what? The guest room we use as storage that's full of boxes? And he said, yes, you can clean it out, it's not that hard. You have the weekend to get your stuff out of your room because they're arriving Monday. Honestly, in that moment, I was in shock. I couldn't process that my dad was literally kicking me out of my own room, the only space that was mine in that house, to give it to my brother who's 24 years old and should be able to support himself. But I didn't say anything that night. I went up to my room, closed the door, and just sat there on my bed thinking, is this really happening? And the worst part is, I wasn't even that surprised. That's how it had always been with Justin. Him first, me second. The weekend was a nightmare. I packed all my stuff in boxes, took my clothes out of the closet, disassembled my desk. My dad didn't help me at all. Didn't even show up in my room to see how it was going. Sunday night, when I'd already moved everything to the guest room, which smelled like mold and had a window that didn't close properly, I tried to clean and organize as best I could. There was no proper closet, just a metal shelf, and the bed was an old mattress I found in the garage. But anyway, I thought, it's temporary, right? A few months max and they'd leave. Justin, Nicole, and Connor arrived Monday afternoon. I was at school, so I didn't see when they moved in. But when I got home that night, my old room was already completely transformed. Nicole had put up new curtains. There were photos of them everywhere, and they'd moved in their furniture. I saw Justin in the kitchen, and he greeted me like, "Hey, little bro, thanks for letting us have your room, super. Nice of you." And I just thought, letting you? As if I'd had a choice. But I only said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." The first few days were weird. Nicole was in the living room all the time taking pictures of Connor, leaving her stuff everywhere. Connor was a normal 3-year-old kid, meaning loud and demanding, and he cried a lot at night. I could hear him from my room because the walls weren't very thick. I tried to do my homework and study for my final exams, but it was complicated with all the noise. My dad basically disappeared more than usual, came home late from work and locked himself in his room. Justin didn't have a job at that point. He found out why later. And Nicole obviously didn't either, so they were at the house all day. Like in the second week, they started using my stuff without asking permission. Nicole used my plates, my glasses, my pans, and left them dirty in the sink. Justin ate the food I bought with money I'd saved from my part-time job at a coffee shop. When I complained to my dad, he just said, "Ethan, they're family, you have to share, don't be selfish." And I thought, selfish me? Seriously? About a month passed and things only got worse. My dad was paying for everything for Justin and Nicole. Food, Connor's diapers. He even gave Justin money to put gas in his car. Meanwhile, I kept working at the coffee shop after school and buying my own stuff because my dad had completely cut me off. He didn't even ask me how I was doing in school or if I'd heard from universities. Everything was Justin this, Nicole that, Connor needs the other thing. Then came May, like 2 months after they moved in. I was in my last month of high school, ready to graduate, when one night my dad came into my room without knocking, which he did constantly now, because according to him, the guest room wasn't really mine, and told me, "I need you to do me a favor. I want you to talk to your grandparents, Gloria and Arthur, my mom's parents, and ask them for money. Justin needs money to start a business, and your grandparents have money." And I was like, "Excuse me? Are you asking me to ask my grandparents for money for Justin?" And he said, "Yes, they're your family. They should want to help. Here's the thing. My grandparents, Gloria and Arthur, have always loved me a lot. After Mom died, they tried to be more present in my life, but my dad basically cut them off. He didn't allow them to visit me much, didn't let me go to their house on vacations, always made excuses. They have money. It's true. My grandfather Arthur owned a successful business before retiring, but they never bragged about it. When I turned 18 inches February, they gave me a card with money and told me that if I ever needed anything at all, they were there for me. I told my dad I wasn't going to do that it was ridiculous to expect my grandparents to give money to Justin when they barely knew him. And my dad got angry, started yelling at me that I was ungrateful, that Justin was, my brother and family helps each other. I replied that family is the one who was there when you needed them, and Justin had never been there for me. That made him explode more. The argument got ugly. My dad started saying horrible things, that I was a burden, that I should be grateful he let me live in his house, that my mom would be disappointed in me. That last part hurt more than I want to admit, because my mom was literally the only person in that family who had made me feel loved. After that, I left the house and walked for hours. I ended up calling my grandmother Gloria, crying from a park at like 11 at night. Gloria told me to come to her house immediately. She and Arthur lived like 30 minutes by car, but I didn't have a car, so my grandfather came to pick me up. When I got to their house, I told them everything. I told them my dad had kicked me out of my room, that Justin and Nicole had basically taken control of the house, that my dad wanted me to ask them for money, everything. They looked horrified. My grandmother started crying and hugged me for a long time. My grandfather was furious. I could see it on his face, even though he was trying to stay calm for me. That night, I stayed at their house. The next day, which was Saturday, my grandfather took me back to my dad's house to get my things. My dad was there, and when he saw my grandfather, he got defensive. Arthur told him very clearly, "Ethan is coming to live with us. You're going to let him pack all his things without drama." My dad started saying I couldn't leave, that I was a minor. Technically, I'd just turned 18 like 2 months before. And Arthur reminded him that I was legally an adult and he had no right to keep me. Justin came out of my old room and had the nerve to say, "Come on, Ethan, don't be dramatic, it's just a room." And my grandfather said something I'll never forget. "Don't get involved in this. You've already caused enough damage." Justin shut up and went back into the room. I packed everything I could in my grandfather's car. My books, my clothes, my computer, my pictures of Mom that I had on my nightstand. My dad didn't help me, just stood there with his arms crossed. When I finished, I didn't even say goodbye to him. I just got in the car and we left. The next few months, living with Gloria and Arthur, were like night and day compared to living with my dad. They gave me the main guest room, which was huge, and had its own bathroom, and even a small balcony. They asked me how I was doing in school, helped me with my university applications, cooked my favorite meals. My grandmother found my mom's old recipes and started making them for me. It was like for the first time in years, I could breathe without feeling a weight on my chest. I graduated from high school in June. My grandparents went to the ceremony, took pictures of me, took me out to dinner to celebrate. My dad didn't go, didn't even send a message. Justin didn't either, obviously. Part of me felt sad. That day, I'm not going to lie. Because despite everything, you still want your dad to be proud of you, you know? But my grandparents filled that void as best they could. Then came July, and things got really interesting. One afternoon, my phone started ringing. It was my dad. I hadn't talked to him since I left in May, so seeing his name on the screen surprised me. I answered, and the first thing he said was, "Ethan, I need you to come home. It's an emergency." I asked him what emergency, and he just kept saying, "Come now, you have to come." Something in his voice sounded desperate, almost panicked. I told him I wasn't going to go without knowing what was happening. Finally, he told me Justin had problems at work, and I thought, what work? If Justin supposedly didn't have a job, right? But it turns out Justin did have a job. Guess where? At the same company where my dad worked. My dad had gotten him a position like 3 months ago, like in April, without telling me anything, obviously. I asked him what kind of problems, and my dad didn't want to tell me over the phone. He told me he needed to talk to me in person, and that it was very important. I didn't want to go, honestly, but curiosity got the better of me. I told my grandmother I was going out for a while and drove the car my grandparents had lent me. Basically, they gave it to me, but they insisted it was a loan, to my dad's house. When I arrived, my dad and Justin were in the living room. They both looked wrecked, like literally hadn't slept. Nicole was upstairs with Connor. I could hear her talking on the phone. My dad made me sit down and then started explaining the situation. Basically, Justin had been stealing money from the company's accounts. It wasn't a small amount. We're talking thousands of dollars, like 40,000 or something, distributed over the last few months since he started working there. I sat there processing this information. Justin was crying, saying he was so sorry, that he didn't know what he was thinking, that he needed the money to support his family. And I thought, wow, really? You stole $40,000 from the company where your dad works because you needed money? Didn't it occur to you to maybe look for a better job or have Nicole start working? Then my dad told me why they were so desperate. The CEO of the company, a man named Sebastian, had discovered the fraud. And here comes the part that left me cold. Sebastian was a friend of my mom's. In fact, my mom worked for Sebastian before she met my dad, and they maintained a close friendship until she died. Sebastian went to the funeral, sent Christmas cards, that kind of thing. And my dad knew this. My dad told me he needed me to talk to Sebastian, to ask him not to press charges against Justin, to beg him to let him pay the money back instead of calling the police. And I literally laughed. I couldn't help it. I said, "Are you serious? After how you treated me, after kicking me out of my house to give my room to this idiot, now you want me to fix the mess he made?" Justin started begging me. He told me he was going to go to prison, that Nicole was going to leave him, that Connor was going to grow up without a dad. And I thought, so what? Why is that my problem? My dad told me it was my responsibility as part of the family, that Mom would have wanted me to help. That made me really angry. I told him not to use Mom to manipulate me, that Mom would probably be ashamed of what Justin had done and how my dad had treated me. I told them very clearly that I wasn't going to do anything, that Justin was an adult who made stupid decisions and now had to face the consequences. My dad went hysterical, started yelling that I was a horrible son, that I was betraying him. Justin kept crying and begging. Nicole came downstairs and started yelling at me too, saying I was a selfish and cruel kid. I got up and left. Just like that. I drove back to my grandparents' house and told them everything. My grandfather immediately picked up the phone and called Sebastian. Turns out Arthur and Sebastian also knew each other because they'd done business together years ago. What a small world. Sebastian came to the house that same night. I hadn't seen him since Mom's funeral, but he recognized me immediately. He gave me a very long hug and asked me how I was, how I'd been all these years. I told him everything. Absolutely everything about my dad, about Justin, about how I'd been living the last few years. Sebastian looked furious. He told me he had noticed some financial irregularities and had investigated, discovering that Justin had been diverting funds to personal accounts. He explained to me that it wasn't just the stolen money, but also that Justin had been using the company credit card for personal purchases. He'd bought a new $3,000 television, expensive clothes. He'd even paid for a vacation with Nicole to a resort using company funds, all documented. Sebastian asked me if I knew anything about this beforehand, or if I'd been involved in any way. I assured him I didn't, that I didn't even know Justin worked at the company until that day. He believed me. He told me my dad was also in trouble because he had tried to cover up what Justin did once he found out, and that made him an accomplice. He asked me if I wanted him to do anything specific about the situation, and I told him I just wanted him to go ahead with whatever he considered, right from a legal and ethical perspective. The next few days were crazy. My dad wouldn't stop calling me. When I blocked his number, he started using different phones, work numbers, even borrowed neighbors' phones to call me. He left long voicemails, some yelling, others crying, begging me to reconsider. Justin also tried to contact me through social media, through text messages. He even showed up at my grandparents' house once, but my grandfather chased him away before he could even ring the doorbell. My Aunt Linda also got involved. She's my dad's sister and has always been dramatic. She called me, saying I was destroying the family, that it was my duty to help my brother, that someday I was going to regret it. I told her the family had destroyed me first, and that I didn't owe them anything. She called me cruel and vindictive, and I hung up on her. Later, I found out she'd been calling other family members trying to turn them against me, but most of them had known me since I was a kid and knew how my dad had treated me. Then Sebastian visited me again, like 2 weeks after the initial drama. He told me he'd done a deeper investigation into Justin and had found more things. Justin hadn't just stolen money from corporate accounts, but had also forged some signatures to approve transfers he shouldn't have been able to make. It was fraud on multiple levels. He also showed me evidence of all the personal purchases Justin had made with the company card. Not just the television and the vacation, but also smaller things, expensive, dinners, designer clothes, expensive toys for Connor. It all added up to like another $15,000. Seeing all that documented made me realize the magnitude of what Justin had done. And the worst part is he'd been doing it while living in my dad's house without paying rent, without paying utilities, basically being completely supported while stealing money from the company. It was incredibly brazen. Sebastian told me he was going to press criminal charges. My dad was definitely going to lose his job because he'd tried to cover up the fraud and hadn't reported it when he should have. Justin was going to face fraud charges, possible prison time, definitely a criminal record. He asked me again if I was okay with that, and I said, yes. It might sound cruel, but honestly, after everything they did to me, I felt they deserved the consequences. But I wanted to do something more. I didn't just want them to face legal consequences. I wanted them to face social consequences too. I asked Sebastian for copies of all the evidence, obviously with his permission, and making sure it was legal to do so. He gave me copies of documents showing the fraudulent transactions, the personal purchases, everything. And then I did something I probably shouldn't have done, but I don't regret. First, I sent Nicole an email. A long, detailed email with attached evidence showing her exactly what Justin had been doing. I showed her the vacations he paid for with stolen money, the television, the clothes. I explained to her that while she was at home posting pictures on Instagram of her blessed life, her husband was committing crimes to maintain that lifestyle. I told her Justin was going to go to prison and that she needed to make a plan for herself and Connor because my dad was also going to lose his job and wasn't going to be able to support them. Nicole responded to me like 2 hours later. She was furious, but not at me. She told me she had no idea, that Justin had told her my dad was helping them financially, that she didn't know where the extra money was coming from. I don't know if I completely believe her, but according to her, she packed her things that same day and went to her parents, who live in another state. She took Connor and told Justin she wanted a divorce. Aunt Linda told me later, because she can't keep her mouth shut, that Justin was devastated, that Nicole literally left him without warning. Then I did the second thing. Justin had friends, several friends from college who were still in touch with him. I created an anonymous social media account and sent messages to some of them, not with the complete documents, because that could have been a legal problem, but with enough information for them to know what he'd done. I told them Justin had been stealing from his company, that his wife had left him because of it, that he was going to face charges. Some of them responded thinking I was a troll, but others checked with Justin directly, and he couldn't deny it. Within days, basically all his friends knew. His entire social circle found out. People started distancing themselves from him. I saw his social media before he shut it all down, and there were comments from friends saying things like, "I can't believe you did this," and "I thought you were a better person." It was brutal, honestly. But again, I don't regret it. My dad officially lost his job in August. Sebastian made sure it was public within the company. Why? He'd been fired. Not with all the details, but enough for people to know he'd been involved in covering up fraud. His reputation was destroyed. Aunt Linda told me, because she always has to tell me everything, even though I don't ask, that my dad had been calling his contacts trying to get another job, but nobody wanted to hire him. In the industry, everyone found out quickly what had happened. Justin is facing criminal charges. He hasn't gone to trial yet, but Sebastian told me that with all the evidence they have, it's almost certain he's going to be found guilty. He's probably going to have to pay restitution for all the money he stole plus interest, and he's going to have a criminal record. Maybe he won't go to prison if he gets a good lawyer and negotiates, but his life is basically ruined. He's not going to be able to get a decent job with a fraud record. Nicole is divorcing him. His friends abandoned him. It's a total mess. My dad tried to contact me one last time like a month ago. He showed up at the place where I work now, a bookstore near my grandparents' house where I started working in August. He came in and confronted me in front of customers, saying everything was my fault, that I'd destroyed the family, that I was a monster. The manager almost called the police. I told him very calmly to leave and never approach me again. He kept yelling, while the plaza's security staff, it's a shopping plaza, came to escort him out. After that, Sebastian, who's been basically helping me as a mentor, since all this drama, sent my dad a letter through lawyers warning him that if he harassed me again, they were going to seek a restraining order. Since then, I haven't heard anything from him. Aunt Linda told me he's living in a small apartment, that he barely has enough to pay his rent with his savings while he looks for work. Justin is living with him because Nicole doesn't want him back, and he doesn't have money to live alone. Apparently, they're both miserable. And me, well, I'm better than ever, honestly. My grandparents have been supporting me incredibly, but they paid my enrollment at a local university where I start next semester in January. I'm going to study finance. Ironically, but also because I realized during all this that understanding money and business is important. Sebastian offered me a paid internship at his company, working in the accounting department under direct supervision to learn the business. He says he wants to help me because that's what my mom would have wanted. I talk to Sebastian regularly now. He tells me stories about my mom. I didn't know what she was like at work, her dreams, her plans before she married my dad. He tells me I'm a lot like her, that I have her determination and sense of justice. That makes me feel good. Like I still have a connection with her, even though she's gone. Some family members still think I'm horrible for not helping Justin and my dad when they asked me to. Aunt Linda, especially, keeps telling anyone who will listen that I'm vindictive and cruel, but most of the people who really know me, my grandparents, Sebastian, my friends from school, even some cousins who know the whole story, tell me I did the right thing. They tell me it wasn't my responsibility to cover up a crime, that family loyalty has limits, that I have the right to protect myself and live my life without carrying the burden of others' mistakes. I'm not gonna lie. There are days when I wonder if maybe I went too far. Like when I sent the evidence to Nicole or when I told his friends what he'd done. Those moments were personal, you know? They weren't necessary for him to face legal consequences. They were pure desire to see him suffer socially, like he made me suffer emotionally. And when I feel bad about that, I remember those nights sleeping in that horrible guest room, or when my dad yelled at me that I was a burden, or when Justin ate my food without asking me. And then, I don't feel so bad anymore. Last week was my mom's birthday. My grandparents, Sebastian and I went to the cemetery to visit her. We brought flowers and stayed there for a while, each in our own thoughts. I mentally told her everything that had happened, as if she could hear me. I told her I hope she's proud of me, that I tried to honor her memory by being honest and standing up for myself. I don't know if she would approve of everything I did. Probably not the vengeful part so much, but I think she'd at least understand why I did it. When we left the cemetery, Sebastian hugged me and told me, "Your mom would be proud of you, Ethan. You're stronger than you think." And that made me feel good, better than I'd felt in a long time. Because for years they made me feel like I was worth nothing, that I was just a burden, the less important son. But now I have people who see me differently, who value me, who believe in me. Classes start in a few weeks. My grandparents help me buy everything I need: books, a new laptop, school supplies. My grandmother is excited, says she's going to pack me lunches every day even though I tell her it's not necessary. My grandfather is teaching me to invest the little money I've saved from my job. Sebastian is training me for the internship, sending me reading materials about corporate accounting and finance. And my dad and Justin, well, I don't know exactly what they're doing, and honestly, I don't really care. I know Justin is still waiting for his trial, which will probably be next year. I know my dad still hasn't found work. Aunt Linda still sends me messages occasionally, trying to make me feel guilty, but I don't even read them anymore. I block them automatically. Sometimes, I wonder if I'll ever talk to my dad again. If at some point, years in the future, he'll show up wanting to rebuild a relationship. And honestly, I don't know what I'd do in that situation. Part of me is still the one-year-old kid who just lost his mom and needed his dad to be there. That part still hurts when I think about it. But the adult part of me, the part that lived years feeling invisible and unwanted, that part doesn't know if I could ever forgive him. For now, I'm focused on my future. On college, on work, on building a life that's mine and nobody else's. A life where I'm the priority, where I don't have to ask permission to exist in my own space. And if that makes me selfish or cruel in some people's eyes, I guess I can live with that.